And so I give you Nancy Wuttke and Kathy Hartman.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. I'm Nancy Wuttke, Senior Warden at Christ Episcopal Church, and this is Kathy Hartman. And I'm going to read because I want to make sure I get them all. Our liturgical minister, priest in formation, and church musician. We're both very excited to be here and to share a little bit about our very special congregation. Christ Church Bethel is a small congregation in central Vermont with weekly attendance ranging from 30 to 35 in the summer to 10 to 20 during the winter. More importantly, we are a local ministry congregation. In 2010, we called our first covenant group, a team of 5 members. 4 were installed by the bishop into their called roles in 2013. Because of life events, we now only have 1 locally ordained priest and 1 other member of the local ministry support team. Therefore, in consultation with the bishop, we have now determined that it is time to discern new roles and call our next generation covenant group.
The major question for us in this phase has been, what roles should we define for this covenant group? Now, having lived this model for 4 years, we do not want to just automatically refill the roles that were designed in 2010. It's important that everyone in the congregation has a voice in this discernment process. And at times like these, we need to gauge the opinions of the whole, so we hold what we call as a World Cafe. Briefly, a World Cafe is a deep listening process around an important question. A larger gathering is divided into table groups of 3 to 4 participants who discuss the question over several rounds. Each round, participants rotate to new tables, which form new groupings and spirals the discussion into deeper levels of understanding around the question. Essential components resurface at each level, and the discussion becomes more refined in the process. One host stays at each table to facilitate the discussion, keeping notes on the round and reporting out at the end of the cafe. All the notes, those from the tables and from the general reporting out, are collected and compiled into an organized document that is shared with the leadership teams and the congregation. Generally, the vestry and the local ministry support team can act upon the information gathered in a World Cafe.
So World Cafes allow every voice to be heard. In a large meeting, there are those comfortable speaking up and others that are more reticent. The cafe format sets up small conversational groupings that encourage each participant to share their thoughts. Even the most reticent of our members open up and become part of the community decisions. Typically, World Cafes have been held during coffee hour after the Sunday morning service. It works, but it's not perfect. There are always members who have to leave immediately after the service, and some who do stay, but they watch the clock anticipating afternoon plans. When somebody suggested that we have a World Cafe during the regular service, I think they were joking, but we decided to give it a try. The combined leadership teams include the vestry, the local ministry support team, and our lay ministry support group, and we all met to plan. Kathy, our liturgical minister, compiled a draft order of service, and along with the lists of possible readings and hymns.
We started the meeting with defining the question. Where is the Spirit leading us in our common life, and what are the roles that we need to support our emerging ministries? Armed with the service outline, reading suggestions, Bibles, prayer books, and hymnals, the group got to work creating a hybrid service. About after an hour and a half of working through absolutely every step, we had our worship service. I created a completely inclusive booklet so that hymnals and other materials would not be required. A copy of the booklet has been posted on the website for all of you to see.
This was my part. With the service about a month away, there was plenty of time to prepare the congregation. So multiple announcements were made in the newsletter, during each service, and by individual emails. We also used time during the offertory each service leading up to that Sunday for members of the congregation to make a short statement about what Christ Church means to me. These talks proved helpful as they brought attention to the upcoming cafe, and they focused the congregation on what makes us Christ Church. We want a newly formed covenant group to honor the essence of Christ Church as it takes us into the future.
You keep going.
Oh, okay. I keep going.
The day of the service.
All right. The day of the service, we had 14 in attendance. We knew that several members would be absent, but we stuck to the date as all the prep work had been done. Despite that, some were taken aback when they walked into the church and found the card tables and the chairs set up in the middle of the space. But we were there to greet everyone and invite them to find a seat.
A specific goal when we were crafting the service was to maintain elements of familiarity. It was important that this feel like a Christ Church service. We planned a template that was familiar and then inserted the World Cafe conversations after the opening hymn, after the sequence hymn, and after the gospel in hymn. We then moved into the baptismal covenant and table Eucharist. Each table had a small loaf of bread, glasses of wine, and napkins. The table facilitator for the World Cafe served as the table host for the Eucharist. We then had the final blessing before moving back to the World Cafe table reports and summaries. During the reports, one member excused herself to leave for a family commitment. It was well after 11:30. And for the first time, most of us had even looked at our watches. No one seemed anxious to leave, so we finished up the summary conversation and concluded with our closing hymn. Wow, an almost 2-hour service and no one was itching to be done. That in itself told us that the service was a success.
Yeah, really. The following Sunday, Kathy asked some members how they liked the service. Did they feel like it worked for us? And the response really was a resounding yes. And when can we do this again? And these are really from people that do tend to want to move things along, so we felt good about that. Digging a little deeper, we also heard from several participants who felt that including the cafe in the service increased the level of significance of their worship service. Not only were the discussions informative, they were spiritual. So our plan going forward is to continue the World Cafe Eucharist services anytime we have important discussions to make as a congregation. We all recognize that we have definitely reached a new level of community communication through this process, which is especially important for a local ministry congregation. Thank you, and we'll both be available during the discussion.